Hey, Jason Wood here, the VA loan guy and host of the Armed and Ready podcast. Today we have a really exciting episode for you. Come on and take a look. Hey everybody, Jason Wood here, the VA loan guy. Super excited to bring you first episode of season 2 of the Armed and Ready podcast. We have a returning guest with us today, Melanie Burkholder. Super excited to have her on the show. Prior Secret Service agent, now running for office. So we wanted to dig into what's happening in the campaign and kind of get into the meat of it, and talk to you about where you are with everything and propositions and all that stuff. There's a lot happening campaign season now. We're less than a month from election day. So I know the pressure's on and the tireless nights are here. So tell us, how is the campaign going?
Yeah, thanks for asking and thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it. I love this podcast. I love what you stand for and what you do. So it's really important to me to be able to have a voice here. So thank you for that,
You're
Jason.
welcome. Yeah.
My goodness, yes, 27 days, but who's counting? What's happening in the campaign has been very interesting. We've actually challenged my opponent to a debate several times and several different occasions, and she's not stood for the challenge. She's not even answered the challenge. So it's very difficult for someone to determine who to vote for if you don't have the opposition's views and ideas on policy.
Yeah. You think they're scared?
Well, we have her face on a milk carton, so it might be. We don't know where she is. We don't know what she stands for as far as, in Carlsbad Unified, our kids are still out of school. They're doing remote learning, which is why Cash is here with me today, because he can do his homework anywhere. And, I don't know. Does she want the schools open? Does she want the kids back to in-person learning? I'm not sure. I definitely do. As a mental health therapist, I'm seeing so many problems that are not relative to education, but that are relative to our kids' mental health needs, and they're not being met. And basically what distance learning does is provide a deeper gap with the haves and the have-nots. There is no equity in learning when you have to have distance learning, because, some people may live in an apartment with 5 other people. They share a computer. They don't have the means necessary to create equity in learning. And then other folks have those means and can do it. So we didn't sign up for a public education to be delivered via an online teaching experience. Actually, I went into Cash's room yesterday and he had PE first period. And I literally heard his teacher say, okay, now you guys go outside and do aerobic exercise or wherever you need to go to do it, and do that for 40 minutes, come back and we'll talk about it. He's in 7th grade. I'm like, what did he just say? Like, that is not acceptable. I can pay for an athletic trainer. I can pay for a music teacher. And what they're proposing for middle schoolers and high schoolers is to keep them home through the month of January. They've already been out of school since March 13th.
Wow, that's too long.
It is unacceptable. They don't have a plan. We need a plan for reopening. I don't know if my opponent has any idea what's going on in the school systems, because, again, she's nowhere to be found, and these people are hurting. We're seeing incidences of abuse, neglect, food insecurity, domestic violence. All of these things are increasing right now, and it's a real deal. So people that have never even thought about smacking their kids or, smacking them around, it's like isolation, and
Yeah, I mean, you got everybody cooped up. And I know that, there's a lot of children out there who don't come from a good home.
Yeah.
And sometimes getting to school is the
It's a
best
safe
part of their
place.
day. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
safe place. And
Yeah.
now, they're trapped at home in that environment.
So
Um,
true. And that teachers are mandated reporters of abuse. And if they're not seeing the children, then, it's very difficult to give them the needs that they have, to supply the resources and the needs for them. And it's just heartbreaking, really, what is happening to the children.
yeah.
And rates of suicide ideation and attempts are astronomically rather increased right now in use of antidepressants, anti-anxiolytics, all of those types of drugs that treat mental health illness they're increasing right now. And good. Good. I want people to take the medicine if they need it,
Of course, yeah.
obviously. But we also want to create an environment for learning, and that's just not happening right now.
Do you think, I know the distance learning and stuff is because of COVID and But do you think that some of this is kind of fear mongering a little bit?
Yeah, Jason, I do.
Um,
I think actually when you have a narrative of fear and you drive that narrative for such a long period of time, it's really hard to change the narrative and to get people's minds changed. I mean, I'm in a group for Reopen Schools, and we're presenting data and facts for other districts that have opened
mhm,
to show. I mean, obviously, we don't want any teachers sick. We don't want kids sick. We don't want to
of
hurt
course,
anybody.
yeah.
Just do this safely. And I can't fathom how our folks can't get it together. Costco's been open this entire time. Grocery stores, all of these places have been open. So why are we not modeling our reopen behavior after what they've done that's been successful? And have a plan. Really, we're not asking to open tomorrow. That's not our purpose. Actually, we were just at a peaceful protest prior to this podcast, just saying, my issue is mental health, obviously, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Just saying we've got to get the kids back in school for their mental health, and the proposal that we have for middle schoolers is to send them back. For extracurricular activities. And so what I was saying earlier is I can hire a music teacher, I can hire an athletic trainer. I can't teach my kid math,
Right.
And that's what we need. We need learning. We don't need, I mean, we need all of it, the totality of the circumstances, but critically it's getting serious. So
Yeah, it's interesting to me, and I sometimes wonder if there's, kind of conspiracy theorist in me wonders if kind of the fear mongering has a deeper purpose. But I
yeah,
watched something on the news the other day, and they were talking about Sweden and how
yeah.
they handled the whole COVID situation, and then what the results were,
Hmm.
thus far, and their results really weren't much different from ours.
Yeah,
But they didn't close anything. They didn't.
right.
I mean, they did
Never.
put some things in place, like some social distancing. They eliminated like big group gatherings. So they did some stuff. It's not like they ignored it.
Yeah.
But then you look at the extreme measures that we've taken in our state and in our
Hmm.
country, and some states are more open than others. But it seems to me like if the COVID thing, we're probably all gonna get it in
Yeah.
some form at some point,
Yeah.
right? And if we can look to that as maybe an example, and I know certain states like our state probably is not willing to, but I think that's a good example that the numbers aren't varying,
Right.
and the kids are the least susceptible
Susceptible
to
to
it.
it, yeah. In San Diego County, we actually haven't had one death of anybody under the age of 20, but 3.4 million people. But I mean, I think to your point, if there is a greater entity making the decisions, we have California Teachers Association, a very, very powerful union in California that I'm sure is having influence on the decision makers to some extent. If you look at people like my opponent, if you look at where her money comes from, it comes from special interests and lobbyists and unions in Sacramento. She has more donations from Sacramento than she has in the district. And I have all of mine are, in district, or maybe like I have a friend in Texas that gave me $50 or something. But it's overwhelming to see the difference in the support. And I think it's indicative of how the district is going to turn in November, because I'm not for union teachers unions. I'm for people. So I think when you start getting your pockets lined with all of that money, you forget what you're doing, who you're doing, what you're doing for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my political stance is I really am not pro any career politician.
Yeah.
I feel like the natural instinct for anybody, regardless of party, when you run for office, like the very first time, whatever level,
Hmm.
whether it's city government or a county position, or even you're running for something bigger, but the first time and usually the first term is usually fairly sincere, right? The motivation behind it, the things you're trying to accomplish are pretty sincere.
Hmm.
And then I feel like after first term, or maybe halfway through a second term of any elected office, kind of the greed and the money and the power starts to kind of overcome the initial drive
Yeah.
to go into public office. And then I think it's indicative of like your opponent, who is just getting money from special interest groups and things like that, and kind of forgotten the purpose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the purpose now is to get reelected. The purpose isn't to help the people.
That's right.
And
That's right.
and that's where our system, I think, is broken at every level, the federal level all the way down to the most entry level of
Yeah.
political offices. But it's something that I don't know, I think is near and dear to a lot of people's thought process, because, we're watching after, and California is a pretty big abuser of just keep reelecting the same person
Yeah.
after time after time after time.
Yeah.
But, their impact for the people just diminishes every election, but
Yeah.
they grow rich.
That's right. And this is not going to be the highest paying job I've ever had. I don't intend to be in politics for the rest of my life. I'm looking at the district, and I'm hearing people reach out to me that are in need, and they need help, they need guidance, they need someone to point them in the right directions a lot of the times. And that's why I'm doing it. I certainly don't have to work. I'm very fortunate for that, but that's how passionate I am about this, and for the future of California and for my children. And like you said, if you keep electing bad leaders, you get bad leadership.
Right.
And so I think it's really important to recognize that my opponent has not been out and ahead of any of this. She's like hiding in her basement. She actually said that she wants to wait until there's a vaccination and everybody in the globe gets vaccinated before she comes out and does anything. And going back to Sweden, what the numbers show relative to children getting this virus, and the governor keeps changing the goalposts on us, quite frankly. Yeah, now he's got some sort of a rainbow chart of when we can open, and it used to be, well, we're going to do 2 weeks to slow the curve, or flatten the curve, and now it's, oh, by the way, now we have to wait. Youth sports still aren't open. It's very, very hard for children to continue to be in isolation, particularly in the middle school age group.
Yeah.
They need to establish those friendships. What they do in middle school right away, right off the bats, they go to a middle school camp, sixth grade camp, just to get these kids to work together in the spirit of, working together and not creating an environment of, a toxic type environment.
Yeah.
So this is a big thing. I think we talked before about what are the issues that are, in this 76 district, which, by the way, includes Encinitas, Oceanside, Carlsbad, Camp Pendleton, and Vista. Now, the issues used to be, traffic, immigration, schools that are failing our children, and different taxes. Now it's severely open the economy and open schools. I mean, literally, those are the two main goals that I would have safely, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Everybody needs a plan.
Everybody needs a plan. And we have also, coupled with all of this on the ballot this November, we have all of these propositions. So I kind of wanted
Yeah, I
to
was
go
going to
over
ask you
this.
about that.
Okay.
So like the propositions, like honestly, like I don't even know what's going on with any proposition until like the day before election day. And then I kind of read up on it and figure out, okay, these are the ones I'm voting yes on and no on. Because you can't even really tell from the ads on TV what really they're talking about, because
That's correct.
there's stuff buried in those things. So it's just kind of a sales gimmick when you see it on TV. But so what are the propositions that you're for, and tell us about the proposition a little bit. Give us some meat on that.
Sure. I have to put my glasses on. So the only two that I'm voting yes on are Proposition 20, which is it's a law enforcement proposition. It sort of reverses the excesses of Prop 47 and Prop 57, which I think we have spoken about before, that ties the hands of law enforcement to actually do their job. I've got that, I think, on a walk piece, that I'm just so against those two props that really, as a former law enforcement person myself, we really need a broad scope of our ability to do our job. And this really helps do that. It restricts parole for certain offenders and reauthorizes felony sentences for certain offenses currently treated as misdemeanors. So I definitely want to support law enforcement. And it's interesting, and your viewers should know that my opponent's platform is to defund the police. It's literally in the San Diego County Democratic Party's platform to defund the police. So
when has anarchy ever been the solution? Like that's what I wonder, right? Like defund the police. So really you don't want police here?
Yeah.
So you're cool with your house getting burned or broken into and all the stores getting
destroyed? Really.
I mean, they're okay with that? Like I just don't understand the thought process behind let's eliminate the rules.
Yeah.
Right?
It won't work. I mean, home prices will go down. You're in the real estate business. Home prices will go down. Schools will be deteriorated. It doesn't work for the safety of the community, and safety is government's number one role. to provide safety. When people don't feel safe, they start buying guns. Guess what? Gun purchases are on the increase. Ammunition has gone up. I'm actually
You can't
hosting.
hardly even get
I
ammunition right
know.
now.
I'm hosting another shooting range day. We had one for my birthday in August, which was a huge success, and so many people wanted to go. My son's in the background going, "Yay, he can't wait." So we're doing another one on the 13th of October. If people want to join me, go to info@Melanie4Assembly or just my webpage, Melanie4Assembly, and you can sign up there. And I can't wait to go. But they increased the price by $20 from August to October for the range. So I'm still getting a killer deal. But I mean, that's just how much ammo has gone up.
Yeah, it's
And,
hard to
and
get.
getting it is hard, yeah.
Yeah.
And I usually shoot a 357 SIG, and they hardly ever have that caliber. So we're going to do 22s, I think, that day just to make it easy. But anyway, so that's Prop 20, definitely pro law enforcement candidate. I'm so happy to be endorsed by the Oceanside Police Officers Association. And they understand that as a former law enforcement agent myself, I would not want to defund the police, nor would I want to take their pensions. It's a little bit different being a Republican, but it's just I've put on a badge and a gun and a vest, and I've done the job. So I understand what it's like every day to do that. And you know what? I protected presidents. I knew my protectee, right? I knew who
Right.
I was protecting. Common everyday police officers go out and do it for people they don't even know. I mean,
Right.
it's really fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like sorry for them in one sense. They can go to pull someone over for a minor traffic
Yeah.
violation, and that could be just total average Joe. Whoops, made a mistake, or it could be somebody who's going to fly off the handle, pull a gun on them.
Right.
And
Right.
you never know, and they're in such a vulnerable position in just like
Yeah.
regular traffic stops, and of course they do more than that, as we know. But stripping them of funds, the funds aren't just for buying guns and bullets,
Right.
and I think maybe that's where some of this is misinterpreted, right? Because they see, the media blowing out of proportion, police aggressiveness and those deaths. And I'm not minimizing the importance of those incidents,
Sure.
but the funding of the police isn't only for buying bullets and guns, right?
Right.
It's for training, it's for education. And if we want the police force to do a better job, then we need to provide them the tools in order to do
Correct,
it, right?
yeah.
We need to empower their leaders to be able to implement whatever other protocols or processes that need to be in place so they can work towards preventing that kind of stuff in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the only way. And that's what we're proposing is actually a little bit more accountability on the training, because in California, they actually do go through. So like as a therapist, mental health, I have to do my continuing ed credits to get my licensure renewed every time. And law enforcement does training to that effect. And I'm encouraging perhaps a demonstration of their use of force policy, an actual physical demonstration of that. And in Secret Service, we had to do that. We had to go in with all this, it's like almost like boxing gloves, but all over your body. and you,
Oh, okay.
you had to take somebody down, and render them safe. And I think maybe that should be added, perhaps. I'm not advocating for pouring a ton of more money into this stuff, but I mean, critically think about what we're doing right, and then also what we need to improve, and then provide them with those resources that they need to do
Well,
that.
maybe there's like some different accountability measures that can
Right.
be enforced on the leadership
Yeah.
in the police force,
Yeah.
right? To ensure, that the junior ranking guys and gals are doing what they're supposed to, how they're supposed to, and that goes up the chain of command, right? And have some levels of accountability. And
Yeah.
and if something bad happens, then everyone in that direct chain all the way to the top, then they feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other proposition, if you want to go back to the props,
Yeah.
the other proposition that I'm in favor of is 22, and I'll explain that too. So we all are probably familiar with the law, the AB5, the gig economy killing, independent contractor killing job, sponsored by sponsored by Lorena Gonzalez and also supported by my opponent 3 times. This put hundreds of thousands of people out of work in California, and the vice president, coincidentally, has come out in favor of doing this because it's essentially unionizing all workers, right? So I think of this Prop 22 is a carve out for Uber, Lyft, DoorDash people to at least allow them to continue to work as independent contractors when they want to work, for whom they want to work, and how they want to work. Some people have reached out to me that weren't happy with my support of it because they want the full repeal of AB5, which I do as well. So, for example, if you're a musician and you go work at a club on the weekends, AB5 says that that club should absorb that person as a musician and then pay the unemployment insurance, workers' comp, and all that kind of stuff. Well, if I'm a musician, I want to play at this club one weekend, maybe this club the next weekend, and I don't want
Private
to.
event the next
Yeah,
weekend.
I don't want
Yeah.
to be an employee. I want to do what I want to do, right?
Right.
Well, what if I'm a musician that actually creates art, creates music? If you work for someone, you don't own that anymore. So the person that you work for owns that. So there's a bigger problem. If you perform at a local community theater and you come and do Peter Pan for 2 weeks, and then you want to go do another play at a different place. Okay, so the local community theaters are not moneymakers, right? They're local
Right.
community theaters.
Right.
So the ticket prices are going to go up if those people have to be employees. It's just going to be unaffordable, creating a bigger gap again for those that have and those that have not. So that's cultural, it's community oriented, and it's an attack on all of those things that most people value. Piano teachers. I mean, this thing goes so far, and it's such a huge umbrella, a huge net that has been cast on these independent contractors, all in the name of, well, they don't pay their taxes. Such a bunch of crap. I mean, it's just not true. Just because you want to work when you want to work shouldn't we're in the United States of America.
You're a business owner. Yeah.
Yes, it's crazy. So it really does. It really does affect so many thousands of people in California. So that's why I'm a yes on 22, because I think, let's start there and maybe we can go further. I really want to repeal the whole thing, though. The last proposition that I think is super important that I did want to touch on, I'm a no on, but I just want to explain it to people a little bit so we're sure that we understand on, and that's Prop 15. I know that you know all about this. You want to explain it? I mean, I'll just say yes.
No, you go. You're the expert.
Prop 13 is actually put in place by the voters in 1978 for homeowners where we have tax protection. So Prop 15 is actually going to, if passed, going to reassess commercial property values and tax them at that current rate instead of what we've had in place for so long. So I tell everyone, no matter if you are a renter in an apartment complex or if you are a pizza shop owner, then your taxes, your rates are going to go up because nobody in their right mind is going to absorb that much of an increase in taxes without passing it along to the next person. So if I own a commercial property, let's just say it's apartments, I'm reassessed at the 2021 value of that building, then the renters inside that building, their rent is going to go up because I've just, increased my liability, my overhead. So that's what Prop 15 is. I'm a staunch no on that. I encourage everyone to vote no on that. And they're putting lipstick on a pig with this one because they're saying, oh, it's for the schools and for the firefighters. I don't care what the wording says. At the end of the day, it's a tax hike and it's going to affect everybody. So even if you buy a pizza from the pizza store, your pizza is going to cost $40 now because, they can't absorb that cost.
Well, that's, I think, so we had another thing in my industry happen earlier this summer, which was Fannie Mae implemented this additional cost for people doing refinances. And essentially, they're just seeing all the numerous amount of transactions and they want a bigger piece of the pie. Yeah. So they go hit the mortgage companies with this adjustment. And it's foolish thinking in the exact same line that this is foolish thinking. The foolish thinking is that they think, oh, we're going to add this cost, whether it be the tax, both of them are taxes, basically. Right. So we're going to add this tax and the company is going to absorb it. The owner of the commercial building or the mortgage company, they're just going to absorb it, which is not right in thinking. None of these businesses are sitting there going, oh, yay. I have just all this flush money. Yeah. And, everyone's working on shoestring budgets more or less, depending on the industry, right? So, all of that cost always gets passed to the consumer. Absolutely. Every time. In my industry with that Fannie Mae hike, it gets passed to the consumer. With this kind of thing, it's going to be passed to the consumer. So, the other thing I don't think that they're really looking at with this is now that COVID has hit and so many people are working from home, the going to the office in a commercial building
Right.
has diminished greatly.
Yeah.
Right. And there's going to be, even when we get a vaccine and therapies and all this stuff, you're still going to have people who are uncomfortable going to the office, and the employers aren't going to be in a position, nor should they, to mandate, well, get to the office or else,
Sure.
right? So they're going to give people the flexibility to work from home. So you're still going to have a big portion of that workforce not utilizing the office. So what's going to happen? Well, these big employers are going to start downsizing the amount of office space that they carry.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
not only are you going to cost people out of it through the tax, but because of this whole COVID situation, they're not moving. So it's a double-edged sword that's a lose-lose on both sides.
Yeah, it is. And I think some employers are realizing their employees are more productive when they work from home.
They are.
They're more available, they get more done, and it's definitely going to change. While I like that, education cannot be done at home. It must be done. When you walk into a school, you create a great equality in learning. Everybody there has the same resources. They get taught the same way. And unless they have obviously IEPs or they need special assistance, which again, that's not helping anyone right now either.
Right.
So
It takes a special person to be able to teach.
yeah, it really
that
does.
kind of stuff.
It really does. But I mean, I just think what California is doing ultimately is creating a wider gap between those that have and those that have not, and that just doesn't work. In history, it hasn't worked, and if they continue that route, it's not going to work for us. And so that's why I encourage people, know who you're voting for. Melanie for Assembly, reach out to me if you have questions or ideas. And, one of the things I think is really important is that in North County, we have a homelessness problem, and many are our veterans. And I think we need to take better care of them. And I'm proposing legislation to do so as soon as I get elected. That's one of my top priorities, which is going to be a tax savings for them so that we retain them in California so that they don't get their pensions and run away from the state because it's cheaper to live somewhere else. Because in fact, I get it. There's so many people leaving that we're probably going to lose some seats in our house. So we have to do a better job at managing what we have and the natural resources that we have. And also take care of people, take care of the people that live here and that their livelihoods are here. So that's what I wanted to share as far as campaign updates and things like that go. We're excited. I had a painting event. We called it Painting with Patriots, and it was it was in September. And so we painted a flag on canvas. One of my sweet, sweet volunteers that teaches third graders to paint. And I told her I paint like a third grader. Come on over. You can teach me. And it was a great event. We're doing another one, and we're going to be painting pumpkins. And that's going to be on October 17th.
Oh, cool.
Very small donation for this event. And it's so fun because everyone's personality comes out in a painting. You have someone super conservative that's all in the lines, and then you have people that are like very different and there's splatters on it, and then you have me where I'm trying to do it exactly like she's doing it. But we're going to do that for fall, October 17th. So anything that we have going on, we're going to be at the Veterans Association the second Friday of this month. Is that this Friday? I can't remember. If it's this Friday, we'll be there.
Friday, yeah. So what events you have coming up still? So you have this Friday, you have at the Veterans Administration, right?
Yep. Next Tuesday will be one of my last cooking shows, Cooking with the Candidate on Instagram, 3 p.m. live cooking show. And then I'm doing my final conversation with the candidate, like a town hall, on the 22nd of October. We're going to have Carl DeMaio on that day.
Oh, good.
We'll probably talk about propositions and measures that we're really up against here in November. And then we've got Election Day coming up. Yeah. So we're going to be...
Plus the pumpkins, plus the gun range.
The gun range, yeah. And we're going to be out and about. I mean, we are not letting COVID put us down. We have been knocking on doors for 16 weeks. We wear masks, we step 6 feet away, and we talk to the voter. And believe me, Jason, they want to be talked to. They have been lonely. I mean, at the end of it, it's like the isolation isn't helping anyone. And so... when
you have these candidates... I mean, even at the presidential level, that aren't doing the grassroots campaign efforts, right? In the guise of COVID, and we all need to be safe. Which there's safe ways to do it, anyways, like you're doing.
Yeah.
But that grassroots initiative, I mean, that's what drives people to go vote, and I think it makes the the voters feel like they're valued.
Yeah,
They have
absolutely. I
some
mean,
level of importance.
it's so funny to me too because I get all of the communications because I want to make sure if my name is on something, then it's got to be right.
Right.
Um, it's nothing worse than sending out something for Secret Service agency wide and having something misspelled or something like that. Oh my gosh, that would be awful. So, anyway, the funny thing is when people send me a request for a yard sign and they forget to put their address in, I call them on the phone. Hey, this is Melanie. We're going to get you a lawn sign. I've got the team ready to go, but I need your address. Wait, who is this? It's really you? And it's so funny to me because who else is going to call for me? Like, I don't have assistants sitting around, waiting to. I mean, that's not true. I have an amazing team of, 75 volunteers that are really working every day, so hard for this campaign, whether it's marketing or, communications or media. They're really trying to get it out there. And good news, we did have another independent expenditure come across today. Those are outside people that are supporting the campaign that are doing advertisements for me. So when you're scrolling through your Insta, at 10 o'clock at night and there's Melanie. There you go. They're advertising for
Oh,
me.
that's
So
cool.
it is cool. And it's a great way to get your name recognition out there. So, yeah, we got so much going on. And we just want to have not a new normal, but our normal back. We want to
Yeah.
see that. And in Sacramento, it's so bad in Sacramento. That's why we need to have me elected to get a greater balance of power, so that
Absolutely.
voices can be heard that have been stifled for the past. I mean, this seat is actually historically a Republican seat. My opponent, I call her the accidental assemblywoman because she snuck in there because we we didn't have a Republican on the ballot. So you're never going to win if you don't have a
Oh, well,
Republican.
yeah, if you don't have an opponent, that makes it pretty easy, right?
Yeah. So that's what we got to do come November 3rd. I encourage everybody, please vote. I mean, this is a critical election, not just mine, but even into school board positions, city council positions. If you enjoy local control, I'm a local control candidate. I want the cities to do what they feel is best for their cities and municipalities. And that's just really important when you're thinking about what the legislative body does in Sacramento. And that's, more mandates, more
When you hit on
laws.
it too, like the balance of power, I don't know if people understand it all the way, right? I mean,
Mhm.
when one party has such a super majority
Mhm.
in any legislative body,
Sure.
right, at the state level or others, um, it creates the ability for them to do whatever they want to do, not necessarily what's in the best interest of the people whom they represent.
Correct. And that's why you're seeing a lot of bad legislation
Right.
come across that people are just, I mean, they
And
contact me
and you
every
couple
day.
that with the careerness of their
Hmm.
political life,
Yep.
and now they got the super control. It's just all about what's best for them.
Right. It doesn't have anything to do with the people that they're representing.
Right.
And it makes a mess of things because they're not accountable. Even my opponent, she won't vote on something that she thinks could go either way. She just won't show up to vote because it doesn't matter. They still have a supermajority. She
Yeah.
doesn't have to be accountable. I mean, it's really frustrating when you're an opponent, and someone that's an incumbent won't Zoom debate you or not even get into a forum or to a chamber of commerce. It's just, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'll
So.
call her. She's a chicken. I mean, bluntly said, I mean, if you're not willing to, if you're trying to win the bout, but you're unwilling to jump into the ring.
Yeah, it's really hard to, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how do you win the fight if you're unwilling to jump into the ring?
I don't know. I mean, I signed up to take bullets for president, so I'm not scared of an incumbent,
Right.
Democrat debate. But it just seems to me, I don't have anything to lose. Why not? Let's just go. I put the boxing gloves on. Let's go. I don't
Yeah.
care. But it doesn't. Even her town halls and everything she does is scripted. She doesn't take spontaneous questions or extemporaneous anything. It's so interesting to me. Again, accidental assemblywoman.
Well, another thing too, I think, and you touched on a little bit, is, accessibility, like to the candidates, and even when you're in office, right? I mean, the whole purpose is to represent the
Correct.
people, right?
Mhm.
So, I don't know if everyone feels this way, but I would assume that some people feel like, oh, well, they're such and such office, I can't reach out to them. They're way up here. But I think that's really couldn't be more further from the truth, right?
Yeah.
Is you guys like and look forward to that interaction from the people whom you represent,
Well,
right?
I do. I mean, it's interesting that you bring that particular topic up because the thing is, people have reached out to me saying, I've reached out to Tasha's office and nobody's calling me back. I don't really know what to do about my small business loan or, whatever the case may be, or my child that is on an IEP that needs some help and the school district isn't responding. So I'm that type of leader, but clearly she is not. So there's another thing that you can vote for in November.
Yeah.
Ballots are dropped. Vote early, vote often, they say, right?
Right. Right.
So thank you again, Jason, for having me on so close to the election, too. It's
Yeah.
really nice to be able to go over the propositions and about what we've got going on in the campaign.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, anything we can do to help and
Thanks.
change the balance of power and support you, that we absolutely will. So
Yeah.
thanks for spending some time with us. I know your schedule's tight right now, so
Yeah.
close to the election, but we appreciate you carving out a little piece for us.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Melanie.
Thanks.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Armed and Ready podcast today. As always, if you have any questions, visit me on valoanguy.us.